Singers, do you ever feel unworthy of calling yourself an artist? And singing teachers, do you know the truly positive impact that you can have on such a singer? Well, we are back with another student spotlight, this time chatting with Kristina Mann, whose singing lessons with Hannah Smikle of vocal performance coaching helped her to take her singing seriously and enabled her to call herself an artist.
Kristina Mann, just before we came on, we were talking about your music and an album that you wrote called Gold. And considering genre, and you said, I just sometimes don't know how to describe myself in a genre. And then we went down the rabbit hole of, do we need to do that as artists? Can we not evolve with ourselves through the decades to go with the flow and test the boundaries of genre? So I'm not going to ask you what genre you feel you fit in.
Thank you.
Instead, I'm going to ask you to describe the different parts of your profile as a vocalist and the influences that have been brought to your music over the years, and understand your aesthetic a bit more.
That's a great question. Thank you. I have a very passionate heart about being very soulful and real. So I think there's an element definitely of soul that comes through with what I'm singing about, with what I'm writing about. My voice is something that I've had to really make peace with and understand its tone. I don't feel like it's a typical voice. And the journey really throughout my exploration of my sound has been, okay, we've got some soul going on. But what's my voice sound like without me having to try to be a singer? Does that make sense? So my sound, I feel, is still evolving. So the first album, as you said, Gold, it was studio based. It was a great exploration of figuring out what sounds, the ideas that I had on my voice recorder, to then what would happen in the studio, and then going around and actually touring those as like backing tracks. It was an amazing experience to do that, and they were very electronic in their ways, but each one was so very different. And so I had a lot of spoken word on there, which before that, prior to that, I'd never realized I was a spoken word artist. And that was something that I'll probably talk about later about in the making space for some kind of creativity, which really helped me develop these unknown gifts that I had. So I put this spoken word onto the album, and so that became part of it. And so I'm like, okay, so my genre then is something to do with rhythm, because I love rhythm. It's now something to do with electronic, and then it's soulful, and then it's got I like to call one of the songs the weeper, where you just want to make people weep. And so it's like this whole combination on this one album. And that was 5 years ago. And now I'm on to a new sound where I'm using a vocal looper. And again, this is where it's like, okay, it even sounds different now because things are so much stripped back. It literally is my pure vocal. And if I'm honest, that's pretty vulnerable. So it's always evolving. So yeah, if anybody's listening to this and they hear my stuff, they can like write in and tell me what my genre is if they want to.
And who have you been influenced by over the years? Who do you love listening to yourself?
I just love the big female voices. I love Emile Sande in her content. People have said that my sound or style is like an Imogen Heap. I do love a vocoder. And really the depth of Arie. I don't know, that was me listening to her as I was growing up, but I just loved there was an element of real like groundedness and earthiness about her life. It wasn't just pop love songs. I don't think I'm a pop person. I think I'm a life storytelling person. I mean, I love listening to, to like the Whitney Houstons and the Mariah Careys. Like I can admire them, but that is not my voice. That is not my style. My riffs are not my forte. I have to really work at them, especially my lessons, to be able to hit and place notes. But then it's figuring out then what really my voice is able to do, and to kind of concentrate on that without comparing myself to these other voices that I could think, oh yeah, they're amazing and they're inspirational, but also like, okay, what is it that I have to bring?
What was your first memory of singing?
Oh, my first memory. Now this is like where you're like, well, I've been singing forever. But I do feel like I've just had this performance head on me and singing. I do remember being asked to sing. It was once in Royal David City. It was actually when I was at secondary school. And I remember singing that in like the back of a church hall where we had the school assembly. And there was just something every time I sang, I felt this is me, like this is what I'm born to do, even at such a young age. And even like through some times of like understanding that I love singing, but I was very creative as well. So I had other things going on. I was a dancer and I suppose anything creative I just wanted to get my hands on. But in that kind of journey, when people are maybe saying things that really stick to you, as in, oh, well, maybe you're just more of a dancer than a singer. And honestly, those cut deep, and you're like, but I can honestly say that through those kind of situations that there was just something in me that just knew that I was supposed to write, knew that I was supposed to sing, and nothing was going to stop me. It was like just biding time of going, okay, you can say that and you can think that, and maybe that will be my season for that moment. But actually, like I know there's something in this. So I, yeah, I felt encouraged that that was there without even when it was trying to be knocked. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. It's almost like it just bounces off sometimes in
Yeah,
terms of, well, okay, that was a hurtful comment, but nothing's going to actually stop me doing it because it
yeah,
feels like a fundamental part of my being.
exactly. Yeah.
So it's like someone saying, I don't want you to have a nose anymore. Well, sorry about that if my nose offends you, but isn't there?
Yeah, and I'm going to breathe through it. Thanks.
Yeah, sorry about that. You've dabbled in performance and music then all your life, and you even
Yeah.
worked with a charity doing
Yeah.
music. And it was only really in 2016, I think you mentioned, that you actually started to take this a bit more seriously. So can you take us on that journey from you dabbling to you then actually putting a serious hat on?
Yes, I will. I had already had my life planned out and set out, and I was going to get my degree and join the police or something like that. But really, it was a gap year that turned into 6 years, where I worked for a charity. And it was actually a charity that went into schools, took religious education lessons, but used music as a way to communicate things. So I was in a pop band, which is very unlike me, but just where I needed to start. And so there was dancing involved and singing involved. And that was for a good like 3 or 4 years. And then the charity itself evolved, and I took a step back from singing and was more involved in the dancing and the choreography. But all the way through that, I was like practicing my poetry, and because I'd written when I was younger, and I like started writing, and even see, I can't even believe that I did this, but like my friend had a little studio set up in their basement, and I'm singing there, while he's got things drying everywhere, and he's in his living quarters. But no, I've got this EP, and the first EP that I ever wrote was called The Beauty of Imperfection, and it was just 5 tracks, really rough, but they were just my exploration, probably the first exploration of what it was to write about these things I was experiencing. This is like late teens, early 20s. You're exploring life and things are happening. And so that was my exploration. And then I ended up going to uni as a mature student around my mid-20s to do interior design. And that kind of opened up a different path of what I did for my job. But the music stayed with me kind of on the back burner. And I think this is where the whole idea of make space, I call it make space, and maybe it will become a thing, came into play. It's like the idea of if you make space, it will be filled. Like I tend to make space in the gigs that I host. Like I love space. I don't just want to rush through songs. And one of the greatest things that I love is actually to be spontaneous and in the moment see what can come up, because that's where you can connect with the audience. And there's kind of just like you're on the edge of the seat of like, will I be able to say things and sing things that are going to resonate? When musicians like jam together, like I love that. So the idea really came in 2016. I was like, I'm going to dedicate a Friday where I want to explore what's already in me. It wasn't like I needed to go out and search for it. And this might sound random, but I felt like I could picture myself on top of a hill, and as it zoomed out, and I was sat on this like well of gold. And it was like, not that I had to go out and search for it, I just had to dig for it. So I was like, okay, what's inside of me? Oh, I'm a spoken word artist. Well, never knew that. Oh, I'm writing and I'm singing, and I love the kind of electronic sound. I did not know that that was in there. And it was this exploration, which I would advocate everybody goes on, whether it's music or any kind of creative stuff, just to allow yourself to express and to search what's already inside. And it kind of became then the beginnings of the album of Gold. And just one other random thing that happened was, as soon as I made that space, things happened. Like as soon as I took that step forward, and I had a couple who I'd never met before, and they came up to me in a meeting that I was at, and there's like, it sounds really random, but our daughter's getting married in Australia in 6 weeks. Would you write a song for her? And I'm like,
Amazing.
what? That's crazy. So there's things that came up from that time that then was like, okay, this is the album. This is where I've got to go. I've got to take this more seriously.
Yeah. You and I both are fans and follow Inspired to Write, Emile, who's an author who advocates for the importance of art, prioritizing art. I love what she stands for. If you don't follow her already, please go and look at her stuff because it's so great. I remember when I finished university, I went and worked at a game headquarters, had absolutely no interest in gaming at all. It was just one of those filler jobs. And I thought, this isn't serving me. I'm only in my early 20s. I did a degree in theatre for a reason. I should be out auditioning. So I just quit that job because I thought, no, this is not going to be it. I was trying to make time for it, as you mentioned. And there's been other times in my life where I have quit things to then go and actually pursue something that meant more to me.
Yeah.
That can be really difficult to do, to actually make the time for our art and the things that we feel really speak to us, whether that's because of financial burdens or family time or whatever that might be. How would you advise artists like yourself to make time? For you, it was making time on the Friday. How can we find time to actually commit to our art amongst the busyness of life?
I think just because we enjoy it doesn't mean it's naturally going to happen and we put it to the top of the priority list, especially when it's creative. We can just really easily just write it off. Excuse the pun.
Like it.
You've got to know in yourself that is actually a value of yours, because if you don't value it, you won't put the time to it. And so I think as my value of it, of my singing, of my writing increased, I was like, no, this has now got to come to the top of the priority list. I will put other things aside because this now is taking center stage. And it can only be, I mean, everybody will have a different set of circumstances in life and will be busy, have, motherhood or crazy jobs or like lots of things. But the decision is always ours of what we do with our time. And that's not to get on anyone, but like, even if it's just an hour a day. I've been part of a write club actually that's really helped me do my writing, and we were encouraged in that to just do morning pages, which is just like 3 pages, just write anything down. It doesn't even need to make sense, just get your pen moving. So it could just be that simple, wake up in the morning and you've got 15 minutes and you're like, okay, I can just start writing. And it's those kind of simpler things that maybe could be seen as making space, that maybe the luxury of a whole day is luxury. I appreciate that, but the small amounts that can add up during that time, which is where the singing lessons actually came into it, because I was taking my voice seriously. I was like, I have to prioritize this. I can't just rest on my, oh yeah, I'm just a singer. It was like, no, in that moment, in that time frame, I need to invest in this, because I see the importance of it, which is then where I approached Hannah actually, and been with her ever since.
Before you started working with Hannah Smikle at Vocal Performance Coaching, who we've had the pleasure of having on the podcast a couple of times before, and she's a firm friend of Fast. We're big fans of Hannah. What were you actually looking for in a singing teacher?
I had a couple of singing teachers before I met Hannah. And at that time, it was speech level singing was the kind of popular thing that I actually found really helpful for my voice to take away the added pressure that I seem to put on a voice, where a voice could just be beautiful in its own without having to try. So I think I was looking for a teacher who knew about my voice, as in the physically what I could do, how it could expand, how it could be healthy. But also, I think this is the most important, is the trust and the relationship that I needed to have, because it is such a vulnerable thing. Whether you've been singing for, I don't know, 1 day or 10 years, it's still a vulnerable thing because, and this is one thing she taught me, your vocal carries your identity. It's your vocal identity. Nobody has a vocal identity like you. Like, your voice carries so much. And so I think in meeting Hannah and knowing that she'd just started to teach again, I was like, this has to be like, I don't know where the synergy lies. So it was a case of looking at what I'd had before, knowing that I'd really benefited from that. But after having a break, it was like, okay, this opportunity has come up now. I need to run with this. Basically chased her down.
Yeah. Where did you find her?
Well, we'd known each other. We went to church, the same church together, and we used to do a lot of singing. So a lot of singing up front, which is great because in that context, like, it wasn't necessarily with an organ or anything. It was a big live band. It was like live music every Sunday. But with that, there was such a shift from then doing a lot of singing in that arena to then becoming an artist. There was such a flip, and in meeting Hannah, in working with her, like, she's constantly needed to remind me that I'm not. Yes, I have this ability to sing in church and kind of almost not be the center of attention and kind of direct it elsewhere, which is rightly so. But being an artist is something else. It's like you have the stage, you have the voice, you are the, I don't know, you are the one who is captivating, and to make the most of what that is. So I think it's taken me a number of years to be able to flip into that mindset of it's actually okay to really develop and become the fullness of who you are, in my vocal ability, in the way that I would express myself, and the way that I move. I mean, I'm a natural mover, and like my hands are all over the place. But even on stage, it's being comfortable with who I am as an artist, and like, she's been pivotal in that journey. Absolutely.
You mentioned there about how it took you a number of years to get to that place. And we can often see it in lessons that there can be like a frustration or some fear or some confidence issues. So how did you work with Hannah to get to the place where you're at now? What were the strategies that Hannah was putting in place? Or what were the lessons like in order for you to continue through maybe those vulnerable moments and confidence drops to get to you as the artist now?
I think this has happened over years, and I think it's needed to with me, of building trust, of having her check in with me at the beginning. Because there's been some times, and I did take a break of lessons over COVID. It was a very dark time, probably for many people. But as a creative person, when one part of you kind of is dying, a lot of other things die as well. And so my vocal ability and just how I could express myself, it felt like it all dried up. And so coming back to continuing having lessons with her, and already having that history and her belief in what she'd seen me do beforehand, and it was probably the mix of confidence that she would say, the things that she would say, the things that she would challenge me with and go, no, you've got this. It was the way that she had such attention to detail, because she knew me, but she knew my voice. She cared about my voice. And also she has this ability to just pull out the best in you, probably from a very practical, physical point of view. She'd be able to give me exercises that I would be able to do where I'm like, I'm not able to sing this. Like, I don't know how my voice can reach that, or can, without blasting it. Like, how do we do it? And she would give me these warm-ups to do. And then like all of a sudden at the end of the lesson, I'm able to sing it without adding anything to it. It was just like a pure sound that came out. And so, yeah, it was a combination of checking in. I mean, she's had me doing some wonderful things. I've been dipping down to get some high notes. I've been rolling my neck. I've been walking around. To be honest with me, it's the greatest thing is distraction. Because if I think about it too much, it loses the beauty of it. So if I'm distracted and I'm just rolling my head like this and I'm walking around with my swag on and things, like the purest sound comes out. And what else has she had me do? Lie down on the floor, I'm looking in the mirror. Like there's just been a lot of different things. Oh, singing through straws, warming up through straws. Now we're not on straws anymore, but I still love the straw. And so there's been so much like throughout the years that's really helped my vocal confidence. Yeah, she's seen me in some good states and some bad states and managed to help me get through the lesson.
It's one thing, isn't it, going to a singing lesson and think, okay, I'm gonna go and learn a little something, and then not expecting to be there on all fours with your tongue out, making a moo sound. It is quite interesting.
It's interesting, and do you know what? It's a beautiful form of therapy. I never have learned so much about myself than in a singing lesson. Like that has been what I've discovered about my fears, about the bad habits I have because I'm afraid. And I'll just tell you now, I'll be open. I just pull back on some like big loud notes. I can't. I struggle with landing it. I struggle with being able to place it. So I'll pull back, maybe into my head voice, but I just pull back and and she knows, and I know when we're doing it. So those little things that have been habits, she will help me work through them, continue to work through them, so that they don't just become. I go to it automatically, like I'm aware of it, and then what can I do to correct it and change it? So it's definitely improved my sound.
I'm just pressing the pause button on the podcast for a very brief moment to invite you to book your free BAST call. If you've been thinking about joining the BAST community through one of our courses, but you just don't know which option is the best for you, then why not book your free Zoom chat with our very own Kimberly George, who has all the answers. Head over to basttraining.com/book-a-call/ and click that big blue button. That's basttraining.com/book-a-call/. Now, where were we?
So what sort of exercises or sounds is Hannah implementing there for you to feel less hesitant or like you can continue in the sound that you intended?
Yeah, it's mainly the confidence of being able to push the sound to the end and be able to just stop it without holding back. And so even getting to the sounds, like we will go through my music, and it's funny because I'm literally writing notes for me that makes sense to me, won't make sense to anybody else, of how I would even, if I start a sentence or a line with, rather than coming in really heavy, I would change it to like an A sound or something that would allow me to place it and to pitch it without. Now, bear with me, my glottal slits. So I have very strong ones, and sometimes it's not helpful. So it's like the things that she takes me through to be able to soften getting into the note, but then also the confidence to finish the note and be able to just stop it. Like I need both.
It's interesting that you mentioned that the sessions are like therapy, and that you said something helpful is the check-in at the beginning that Hannah does. And we had our first student spotlight with one of my students, Jackie Price, and she mentioned the same thing. It feels a little bit like therapy, and the check-in at the beginning is really instrumental to high lessons. A lot of sessions start like that. So for you, why is that an important element for a singing teacher to be like, hey, how's it been going the last couple of weeks or so?
Because there's been times when I've actually not been able to sing because all of the emotion that I've been carrying is just being carried here. And on a couple of occasions, I've probably not even sang. I've just been in the space because I've not been able to release the tension in it and in being able to sing out. And so, all of the things that we were experiencing throughout the week, through years, like it can carry in certain places. And for me, it's either in my shoulders or in my vocal cords. And so that check-in is vital for her and for me because we both know where each other are at. So if it's been particularly tense or feels particularly tight, she'll get me to loosen up, and we'll do some stretches, or we'll get my mind off the thing that is really been holding me. So I feel like it's paramount to knowing where I'm at, and that she knows where I'm at, and it's so sensitive, the voice, to be able to carry those emotions. And I have found, as soon as I have released that, my sound comes back. Like when you try to speak and you're on the verge of tears, and like it just doesn't happen. And it's like that with my voice. So if I can offload that in some warm-up or some other way, even just having a conversation with somebody who's a vocalist, who knows what it's like to perform, who knows what it's like to get people's feedback, and good and bad, like, it's that in itself is being understood. And so even that is just calming, to be able to then release that, so you can actually give the purest sound.
Once you've checked in and you've done your warm-up, what tends to be the path the lesson takes, and what really works for you as the learner?
Yeah, it has been a case of looking at songs that I want to look at if I'm going to be performing, or a new song I've written. So, for example, the clip Open Hands, it's only a short clip, but that was something that I brought to one of my lessons, and I'd recorded it on my phone. It was very quick. I have a melody, I have some words, and I'm singing it. And I was going to the studio the following day.
Sure.
And so I brought it to my lesson, and it ended up that we changed the key of it, to be able to fit me, to be able to go, okay, no, this sounds better in this. So we would look at any song that I needed to look at, and then we would obviously have a warm up, so she knows what's coming up, of how to warm up different parts of my voice. So if the song involved very, kind of a high range or a chest range, she would warm up those kind of areas of my voice, checking in with my voice as well. Have I been ill? What kind of state has it been in? Have I pushed it too much? Have I been warming up and looking after it? So it's those kind of things that then the warm-up happens, that just suit my voice. And then we would get on to going through the song and working on parts. We would do the whole song, but working on parts then that really just need some attention, and some, even just like things like pronunciation, and how, being a northerner, I tend to have a very dull sound, and well, not dull, but the way that my placement is, or it can be very nasally. And so it's understanding how I can change even a vowel sound to make the sound actually more open. So yeah, that tends to be how a lesson would operate.
What hasn't worked for you as a learner in the past? Is there anything that you've come across that vocally maybe a visual doesn't work for you, or actually demonstration would be better? Have you come across any of those things in your learning?
Hannah tends to be really good. So nothing that would stand out. I think standing in front of a mirror was probably the hardest thing to do, because you're literally looking at yourself, and I'm realizing everything I do I'm not conscious of. And so it's my left shoulder that goes up all the time. And so really, it was helpful having the mirror. Nothing comes to mind with anything that hasn't worked, but she has a way of being able to describe things that if I can imagine it, then I can put myself in her shoes as she's singing it. It's very helpful as well. Sometimes she sings it as it has been, and as it would be. So that's really helpful, because I can go, okay, yeah, that's what I was doing. And that she's just changed that, and I can hear that in her voice. So, and that tends to work more often than not.
Yeah, so she gives you like a before and after of what, so you've got an audible clue to go with.
Yeah.
Between lessons, is there anything that you expect from your singing teacher to be doing?
I probably haven't expected it, but she's done it anyway.
Bloody hell, Hannah, you need to make some mistakes. You're making the rest of us look bad.
Honestly, she just does it. So, for example, I messaged her after a crazy weekend of singing too much and like lost my voice. And she's like, are you doing your steaming? Are you doing gentle warm-ups? Like, when's your next like time for singing? And I'm like, oh, thanks, Hannah. And that doesn't happen all the time, but like I know that when I need to check in with her, if I have really overdone it, she'll give me these snips of information that just help, with the restoration of my silly decisions.
With your time working with Hannah, have you noticed that you've changed anything in terms of how you prep or cool down or the approaches to live performance?
Yes, she is an advocate for warming up and taking yourself seriously, as a professional. And so I think I did very quick warm-ups in the past, whereas now I'm like, these are crucial to my sound and what I'm going to be able to actually perform. So I think there's been a big improvement of the increase of value that I have for my voice has also then increased the discipline that I need and want to put in warming up and cooling down. I think on another level as well, it's more a case of feeling more confident. So I put myself out there more. So there's things that have changed physically, but then also like as a person, taking more risks and taking more opportunities and putting myself out there. So which is why this gig that I'm hosting in a few weeks' time was really like a challenge that came from her to go, so what are you going to do between now and the end of the year, Tina? I was like, a gig? So from very practical ways for my voice, but also for how I portray myself and put myself forward, she's really helped with that.
Can you tell us a little bit more about the challenging element? Because as singing teachers, we do want to do that in terms of, meet the singer where they're at, but also help them progress in many different areas. Sometimes that is by challenging with questions or challenging even some of their limiting beliefs, helping them reframe. So what's helped you and what strategies have helped you in terms of being challenged by the teacher? What did you need?
Yeah, I think I needed goals or things to happen between our meeting times. That's been really helpful so that there was things that I could actually concentrate on or implement. And because we have a good friendship as well, she can say some good things and I will listen. So okay, so the next time we meet, then will you have a venue booked? And I'm like, sure. It's practical challenges as well, like having the goals to be able to do whilst I'm not seeing her. And then, I think just the encouragement that she gives in the lesson as well, it's just been really paramount to making these decisions and moving it forward.
I also like the way you've relayed that and the way that she says it to you in terms of, by the next time you meet, will you have that done? Rather than between now and then, try to do this, because that word try, I mean, it's been brought up when I say it sometimes to other like coaches that I'm working with, it might be like, oh, not try, because try gives you almost the permission not to do it. So yeah, I like the way that you've relayed her saying it to you. And why do you continue singing lessons? What's the benefit for you as the artist? And how long a lesson do you have?
I have an hour lesson. I have them once every month. I used to have them more regularly. And there was a period of time over COVID where I didn't have them at all. And I think I started back having them a couple of years ago now because my flow was coming back and my creativity was coming back. And I was seeing the importance again of being able to sing and to sing healthily. And because I had a friendship with Hannah and I was able to trust her, it just felt like the obvious choice to start investing again in this voice that was carrying a lot of emotion, and be able to kind of dispense that and offload that in lessons. So my times coming back to Hannah in a couple of years ago was really me just getting used to singing again and enjoying the sound and just enjoying singing without performing, without anything. It was just like getting back to that joy. But in that journey, we're now like, okay, flow is coming back and life is coming back and songs are happening and all of that stuff that happened a number of years ago over COVID has fueled the next album. So I'm grateful now. I probably couldn't have said that a few years ago, but it's rich material that she has helped me cultivate, and I don't like the word package up, but it's because it's not just my vocal, it's everything that I am as an artist. Like her being able to point things out to me in the lesson, which I found invaluable. You know, the way that I would even decorate a space, or what the space would look like, how I would dress, like constantly reminding me of those things that are bigger than what I'd been seeing. And so I have the history of how much, I suppose, maturing, I would say, of my voice has happened over the last few years, that I'm like, I can't stop this now, especially when it seems to, when I said before about, you know, taking it more seriously, it's like, now I'm definitely taking it more seriously now. It's like when you've not had something that you love and you cannot make it come alive, and you're literally waiting and hoping and praying that life would come back to that creative part of you that felt so integral to you. Now that's back, I'm like, I don't want to let that go. And so, yeah, she has to be part of that journey. She hasn't got a choice now.
Yeah. Sorry, Hannah, you're locked in. Love it. For you then, how would you pinpoint maybe the top 3 qualities that you would say singing teachers would need in order to work with somebody like yourself?
Top 3 qualities would be the awareness of their student, of where they were at, the ability to have the knowledge about the physical aspects of the voice, and being able to work from a health related point of view. And it's really valuable that she has experience singing, and gigging, and looking after her voice. And so that's been really helpful for me to be able to soundboard of somebody who's already got that experience and can give me some tips and tricks. And so I think those are the 3 that come to my mind straight away.
So tell us about you, Kristina Mann, artist. What's coming up? You've got your gig in a few weeks. We're currently at the very beginning of November recording this. So your gig is at the end of November?
Yeah, it's on the 23rd of November, which is exactly 5 years to the date of me doing my first album launch of the album Gold. And so it feels very timely to be having.
So timely, yeah.
This is obviously going to be a different gig in the fact that it will just be me with my vocal looper, rather than having a big live band, which I absolutely love too. So really the last season has been me developing and taking some of these ideas of these songs, I would say songs through the valleys, if you want to call them like that, but songs that are being able to get me through some, you know, difficult times and some heavy emotions, whilst also wanting to sing again and wanting to become alive again. Like the first song that I made up in my looper was called I Just Want to Sing. I'm like, okay, that's telling your story right now. So really, I'm trying to explore and craft, and then put music out there that would really connect with people. So building up on Instagram and trying to make relations, really. So the idea of hosting the space was, I just love I love having time and space. And so it was just a case of, I need to be able to do that before the end of the year, with the hope of being able to release some more music. Like the snip that I sent you was me just practicing and trying some stuff out of little ideas I have. So I haven't got a massive plan to do a whole recorded album until I've had the time to be able to tour these songs and get them out there a bit more before they're really formalized to be able to go in. But the idea for next year would be to go with a big band, and for musicians to do what musicians do, because I'm not a professional beatboxer. So I can do what I can do and I can make it sound, but really it would be my dream. And one of my goals for next year was to really make these songs with a band and tour them. Let's just say I'm going to tour them next year.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, how can we make sure that we can get tickets to that? Where can we follow you and listen to your music and become fans of you?
Oh, all the major platforms. Yes, Kristina Mann Official is my Instagram. So it's Kristina with a K. MANN official for the Instagram, and there should be a link on there, but basically my gig is on Eventbrite, so you can just Google that, Kristina Mann, and that will come up. But those are the two ways really to be able to find out a bit more about what I'm doing.
Brilliant. Well, Kristina Mann, thank you so much. Good luck for your gig at the end of the month. And it's been a pleasure to chat to you and hear your journey, and to know that your singing lessons are instrumental in your time as a performer.
Oh, I really appreciate it. And I will always say thank you, Hannah, from VPC.